All right, everybody, here we are for episode 93 of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. I know there's confusion as I posted the episode this last week and it accidentally said 93. I fixed it on the on the website, on Buzzsprout, and in some of the other places, so it should say 92 now, but the post had already been sent, so unfortunately that was my bad. I have a hard time keeping track of numbers sometimes, apparently, with this podcast. All right, so this week we are going to dive into boxing films. It ties into one of the movies we reviewed this week. We've talked about... Yes, yeah.
I felt I needed to contribute something, and I was just sitting there with a stupid look on my face.
Yeah, it's okay. They can't see the stupid look, so it's all right. Both movies in this week are like totally on the opposite side of the spectrums of like type of films. I couldn't have picked two more opposite films. Not to say that like I enjoyed both of them, but we'll get into like how like polar opposites they are really. All right, so
variety is the spice of life, sir.
Exactly.
Or at least that's what they tell me.
So we did do a fighting movie podcast where we talked about some boxing movies, but we did not talk about this first one that I wanted to talk about. And it's often considered, I think, the best boxing movie by a lot of people. And that is Raging Bull. You're going to say something, Wayne? You disagree with the best boxing movie?
No. I'm just going to say we are not going to be talking about Rocky at all with this podcast because we dedicated a whole episode to all 27 films in the Rocky franchise. So.
Yes. Go listen to that one if you want before this one. There will, again, like Wayne said, we may mention Rocky here and there, but we're not going to dive into any of the movies because we did an entire deep dive with Doug Cabrera on the entire Rocky franchise. So
I'll give you a couple of Yo Adrians, but no, I did it.
Yes. All right. So Raging Bull, 1980. Martin Scorsese, written by Paul Schrader and Mardik Martin, based on the book by Jake LaMotta, The Raging Bull. It's called Raging Bull: My Story. Produced by Irwin Winkler, starring Academy Award winner Robert De Niro, along with Joe Pesci, Kathy Moriarty, Nicholas Colasanto, Frank Vincent. If you know Italian movies, you'll know Frank Vincent. This is the story of Jake LaMotta, who was, a great boxer back in his day and kind of had like a rise and downfall and rise again. It's really about his life. What I like about what I think is funny, Wayne, is because this is now the third time we've kind of brushed on boxing films, and I'm not a fan of boxing, but I love boxing movies. And I think it's because I was thinking about this today before the podcast. I think it's because boxing movies aren't usually about boxing. They're about it's about overcoming something in their lives. It's a tragedy a lot of the times about what these people had to go through.
Do you think we're conditioned to not like boxing because it doesn't have all the extra involved stuff, like all the backstory?
I think so. I think if I really wanted to get into it, I probably needed. They have that 24/7 or whatever they have, where they kind of do the behind. I think that's why they do that, because people are more interested, I think, in the behind the stories of the boxing match. Because let's be honest, there's some boxing matches, especially when Tyson was boxing, they were over in 30 seconds. So if you have this build up, this backstory to it, I think that really feeds into everyone's emotions and how people feel and stuff. So I think that really gets to it.
One of my issues with boxing is that it's one of the most corrupt sports other than the Olympics. I mean, obviously boxing is an Olympic sport, or it used to be, but again, also the Olympics is also kind of corrupt. So it's very much a lot of behind the scene, back
in the day, there were a lot of money changing hands, and very shady things going on. But it did again lead to great character studies like Raging Bull, and that's where you get he probably shouldn't have been boxing. He was a mess, but he was really good at boxing. This is De Niro and Pesci. This is their first time, I believe, that they worked together. They would obviously go on to work together several times after. Mostly with Scorsese. I think all with Scorsese, actually, except for The Good Shepherd. That was directed by De Niro. But It's a great movie. It shows, the kind of rise of Jake LaMotta and then his downfall and his struggles with his wife and with his brother. The great scene between him and Pesci yelling at each other back and forth is fantastic. The cinematography is great in this film. It is shot in black and white, which, I think adds a little bit something extra to it, especially when you think, you know, growing up, Wayne, I think a lot of times we thought black and white films, you think kind of more cheery because you think of like the old sitcoms from the 50s and 60s and stuff like that. So when you watch Raging Bull and it's so dramatic and so depressing and just all up and down, and it really kind of gives a whole new look to the black and white filmmaking. So what are your thoughts on this film, Wayne? I know it's probably been a while. It's been a while since I've seen it. I'm sure it's been a while since you've seen it as
It
well.
has been a while. I really liked how they captured the fight scenes. They're overly dramatized or dramatic in my opinion, but it emphasizes exactly what's going on and kind of reflects when the Raging Bull, Jake LaMotta, is doing good in life and when he's struggling with something. It obviously affects him in the ring, and the way they captured it and filmed it was very, very, reflective of where he was in his life and what's going on. And I really appreciated that. Obviously, the instant chemistry that we see between De Niro and Pesci, those guys should team up more often, I think. One of my other things that, this is a side note, when we have a Scorsese film, though, always looking for his parents because they're usually going to have a cameo of some kind. In this one, his father, Charles, has a little bit part in it. Getting his name right now. He plays Charlie, man with Cuomo. And you see him throughout. Obviously, they're both in Goodfellas.
Yep.
I don't know, it's one of my little things when it's like, all right. Obviously, both of them died in the mid '90s, so obviously the later films they are absent. But I don't know, just little Easter eggs that I like. I enjoy trying to find. So,
for sure. I didn't know this. Uncredited John Turturro, a man at Webster Hall table, and then Martin Scorsese is the voice of the Barbizon stagehand. So Scorsese making a little cameo in there as well. This movie is De Niro's film. I mean, this is one of those that kind of set him to another level. Like he'd been working his way, I think, towards this type of performance earlier in his career, and then this was the one that kind of put him over the edge. I think a lot of people felt Taxi Driver did that, but when he didn't win the Oscar for Taxi Driver, it lessened it, I think, a little bit. So then when Raging Bull came out and he ended up winning best actor for this one, it really, I think, cemented him as the go-to character actor, method actor at the time. And just the fact that, I mean, they had to take, I think it was like 6 months off of filming for him to gain all that weight.
Right.
Which was insane that anyone would even do that to themselves, but people still do it to this day. And we're going to get into that a little bit with the one of the movies we review. To do that to your body and then to have to come back and give like this performance that he gave, this incredible performance, is just impressive all in itself. There's been a big talk, I mentioned it last week, about how character actors method actors is starting to become a bad thing. But I think what the bad thing about method acting is when you get someone like a Jared Leto, who this is where it's stemming from, because one, people are kind of upset with him right now anyway. But the fact that he, like, when he did Morbius, he wouldn't like go to the bathroom without the crutches. They basically had to get him a wheelchair because it was taking him too long in between bathroom breaks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that like De Niro and Bale really do that kind of method acting. It's more of like when they're in the character, they have to be in the character. They can't come out of it. I don't think there's a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. Now, granted, I'm an actor working on set. But I think for some people, if they need to be in that moment to do it, then I don't see an issue with that. If that's what's going to get you the best performance, as long as they're not being an asshole to people and doing weird stuff like Jared Leto has done on set, I don't have an issue with it. Wayne, what's your thought on that?
I always go back to Terminator Salvation and, do you want me to break your lights? Unprofessional, man. It's like, okay, calm down there. So yeah, I'm not. I understand the criticisms of. Hmm?
I think, especially for Terminator Salvation, like that was
It
the
was a
one that.
classic, and it was almost ruined because of that particular moment right there. It's like, really? And that's why I've always
Oh
kind of been like, skeptical of the method acting. And, part of being a great actor is being able to turn it on and turn it off, I think. And,
yeah,
I think Daniel Day-Lewis is another one that is big on that, or
he is.
just,
He is. He made many comments
immersing
about.
himself.
Yeah,
And great,
I think
fantastic, but, look at like, I don't know. Let's bring up Heath Ledger real quick again. Another week and another week we talk about Heath Ledger. He submersed himself into the Joker character, and again we could link Jared Leto to that too, doing really creepy shit as the Joker, and sending dead rats and bats to people and whatnot. It's like
yeah.
you just I I'm not trying to be judgmental or hypocritical about it because I've never immersed myself into anything like that, but it's just like you got to be able to kind of walk the
There's
line, or you turn it off, turn it on, right?
there's a fine line. I think someone who balances it very well is Leonardo DiCaprio. Is that he is one of those actors. I think he's a good mixture of method acting and regular acting, that he is able to flirt that line. And you've never heard people say about how him being crazy on set or anything, but he's one of the few actors that when you yell action, like he immediately goes into that character. So it's like it's different. Where one of my favorite lines about it is Dustin Hoffman. I forget who he was talking to, but he's like, he was on set with somebody who was doing like method acting. He's like, I don't know, have you tried acting? He's like, because like that's what they do. He's like, that's what I do. The camera turns on, they say action, I act. The camera goes off, I stop acting. It's as simple as that. And unfortunately, not everybody can do that. And I think, like I said, I think Leo is a good example that he could do both. Jake Gyllenhaal is another actor who recently has been talking, because it's been a hot topic lately. He credits
Oh, I
Spider-Man.
miss Hot Topic. Great store.
Yeah, it's still around. Um, he
Yes, but is it
credits.
really for us now? Is it really for us?
No, it's
No.
not. So you need it. What you want is an older, mature hot topic that fits our. Now that you're 40, Wayne, officially.
Yeah. New Balances as far as the eye can see. New Balances, tube socks, and denim shorts.
You gotta have the shoes to mow your lawn. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the New Balance is where it's at.
You got to test the tongs before you start the grill, just to make sure they work.
Exactly. Where was I going? Oh, so Gyllenhaal, he credits Spider-Man: Far From Home for making him realize that acting can be fun again. So I think that's why you see him do something like Ambulance with Michael Bay, because he's what you would consider a method actor. I think definitely a few years ago, maybe more in like the Christian Bale area, where he doesn't really need to get into the character, but he comes up with certain ticks for the character, certain things that kind of put him in that headspace. Um, while Christian Bale did yell at that one guy that one time, I don't think that was like he was upset, because his Cockney accent immediately came out. So I don't think that he was, like super deep into John Connor. It was just the fact that he was trying to focus on something, and that guy got in his eye line, I think is what it was. But back to Raging Bull, like this movie wouldn't be what it was if De Niro didn't do what he did, I think. Could someone else have come into the role and done something similar without doing that type of acting? Possibly. But I think this role lives on because of the performance that De Niro put in, and people will continuously go back to this film as looking for, the best acting in a movie of all time, best boxing movie. They're going to go back to Raging Bull. And I think that's where this one kind of stands at the tippy top of the boxing film world. Alongside Rocky, of course.
And since we're talking about De Niro and being so great as this character, Godfather 2 or Raging Bull, which was he better in?
I think Raging Bull. I think it's just because, don't get me wrong, he's great in The Godfather Part 2, and the fact that he was able to basically do his entire role in Italian while not being a fluent Italian speaker is incredible. But he gets way more screen time in Raging Bull. It's his movie, where obviously you could make the argument that Godfather Part 2 is Al Pacino's film, and rightfully so. And the Raging Bull, he gets so much to play with. I think while they're both incredible roles, I definitely would go to Raging Bull if I'm gonna, pick a De Niro movie to talk about and a performance to talk about. I think it's going to be this one for sure.
Yep. Yeah, I was curious what you would say. I figured that was what the case was going to be because I am of the similar mindset that De Niro didn't have to, but he definitely carried Raging Bull. Whereas obviously Godfather 2 is a masterpiece by all involved, really, in my opinion. So,
oh, for sure, one of the greatest movies of all time, for sure. I mean, it's just when you're separating whose movie it is, I definitely take, it's definitely going to be an Al Pacino
right
film. But De Niro, I mean, he's incredible in it. Don't get me wrong. It's probably his second best performance, I guess. I'm actually even partial to Taxi Driver too. So I think it would probably Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, and then Godfather Part 2.
I agree. I think, I was going to say he's better. Saying he's better in Taxi Driver than he is in Godfather. It's like, do I want the chocolate cake with the whipped cream, or do I want the whipped cream with the chocolate something else? Because I love chocolate.
No, like you say, it's really, I think more of what I'm looking at is the fact, again, Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, it's his movie, so it's him for 95% of the film, where Godfather Part 2, yes, he stole all the scenes he was in, but he wasn't in the entire film. So, but a great performance nonetheless. Okay, so the next boxing movie, again, another one that's not really about boxing, but it sits up there, and it's just this great movie. When he used to make great movies every time, Clint Eastwood's $1 Million Baby.
Oh my goodness.
Such a depressing film. One could argue that maybe this one is more about boxing than Raging Bull, because boxing is definitely the center of this movie, and it's the path chosen by the lead character to set out to be a star. She wants to be a star female boxer. That's her goal. She's driving towards that. And Clint Eastwood plays the old trainer who's trying to get her that goal. And obviously, if you've seen this movie, I won't spoil it, but there's a tragedy that happens midway. I don't know if it's midway, towards the end of the movie. And then
it's the inciting incident for sure. So
exactly. The inciting incident. The last 40 minutes are just a dramatic gut punch when you meet her family, and then the decision that has to be made. And
I think I take that back. I think the inciting incident happens earlier in the movie. The peak or
it might be like halfway through. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to use my film terminology incorrectly.
But it is one of those movies, again, like Raging Bull, full of just phenomenal performance after phenomenal performance. You got Morgan Freeman, Hilary Swank winning her second Oscar, Morgan Freeman winning his first, nominated for several, but winning his first Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. I can't remember if Clint Eastwood won any Oscars, but he was nominated for Best Director.
He won Best Achievement in Directing, and it won Best Motion Picture. Obviously, you said leading actress, and supporting for.
So it was, it was the big winner that year. Then that was, and it's a great fucking movie, man. This is one of those movies. If it wasn't so depressing, I'd probably watch it more. But it's really just a fucking, man. This one gets you.
This is one that I don't think I can watch again, honestly, because of the effect that it had on me the first time, not knowing what was going to happen. And when it happens, it's like, oh my God. Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Like just like trigger warnings everywhere, because, back when this movie was made, there wasn't, a trigger warning didn't exist, honestly, probably. So
I still remember, because I saw this in theaters with my buddy and his girlfriend at the time. We were all sitting there, and I remember that feeling in that moment when you see, again, the inciting, when you see the stool and you see that what's going to happen, and you just, the way Eastwood had it cut together, and the tension that you feel, and then when it actually happens, the moment you're just like, holy fuck. And then you still can't put together what the rest of this movie is going to be. And it really just hits you, man. It's a movie too. This is another one that I haven't seen in a while, but it's still, I mean, just seeing it almost 20 years ago, it still sits with me. And, those emotions still kind of come back up while talking about it. It's such an incredible film. Hilary Swank was definitely on a roll at this time in her career, being nominated several times, winning for this and Boys Don't Cry. She was incredible, and I think underrated too as an actress, which is insane to think about, someone who's won 2 Oscars, but people don't
She's
talk
not somebody you hear about anymore either. I mean, granted, her roles they've never lived up to the next Karate Kid. Let's be fair.
All downhill. Even though she won both her Oscars after that, it was all downhill after that.
They just you got to keep chasing that dream.
Next Karate Kid, a movie that when we did the Karate Kid podcast, I couldn't finish. I watched like 15 minutes of it, and I was like, oh my God. And I've actually read recently, I've seen people on Twitter saying it's actually better than when it was back then, and I still couldn't get into it. I don't know.
No, yeah.
But yeah, $1 Million
Michelle again.
If you haven't seen $1 Million Baby, or if you haven't seen it in a while, definitely go and check that one out.
It is on HBO Max right now. So
is it nice? Okay, good. We talked about The Fighter last time, right? I think a little bit. I don't remember if we talked about that.
I believe so, but not enough that I remember. So
okay, well let's reminisce. So The Fighter came out in 2010. I think this one, for some reason, it was kind of like, even though it's 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, I felt like audience wise, it was 50-50. People either really liked it, like I did, and I think you did too, Wayne, or they really didn't care for it. And it was kind of the return for David O. Russell. He did several movies after this that got Oscar nominations and stuff, and this was one. Christian Bale won Best Supporting Actor for this movie. Another method actor, lost a lot of weight to play Dickie, the drug-addicted brother who ends up training Mark Wahlberg's character in Mickey Ward, and it's kind of responsible for Mickey being who he was. Go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of people had a problem with the redemption story of the Christian Bale character, Dickie Eklund, and they're like, "Well, what was he getting a second chance for?" And the way the family kind of takes advantage and depends on the Mickey Ward character played by Mark Wahlberg. It's like they're like upset about the actual story and how this all worked out. It's like, well, calm down. Don't focus on that. Focus on the actual good parts of this. And, like I talk about a redemption story. It's like, what? Dickie Eklund gets clean and, it helps his brother. Yeah, I guess I just kind of ruined it, but if you haven't seen it yet, it's still okay to watch this film because there's a lot of stuff.
It's based on a true story, so I mean,
Mickey Ward is an actual boxer.
Yes. Talking about these two movies back to back too, I wonder if the $1 Million Baby novel stole a little bit of the Fighter's backstory for the book, because the messed up family, the redemption, all that kind of stuff is kind of from that story, especially the messed up family part. Like that's where it kind of made me think like, oh, I wonder if they kind of took that from Mickey Ward's actual life story, where his family was kind of crazy and didn't really have the respect for him that they probably should have. It's a really, I'm going to steal the word from the Rotten Tomatoes here, captivating film. It's just really great to watch. It's kind of the perfect Mark Wahlberg movie because he's not the best of actors, but he really does shine.
What?
That's perfect Happening. Mark Wahlberg, The Happening.
Killer Trees, my ass. Terrible. Like we all, anytime this movie is brought up, shame on you, M. Night Shyamalan. Shame on you.
My favorite thing too is Mark Wahlberg, just like when he talked about The Half, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know, man. M. Night came to me and was like, hey, you want to do a movie?" I'm like, "Oh, I love M. Night." It's like, "Oh, fucking trees. I don't know, man. Whatever." Basically, how the rest of us feel. But this movie, on the other hand, is a great film, and I think people need to watch it again if they really think that it wasn't great. Melissa Leo gives a fantastic performance. I believe do you have IMDb up? She won too, didn't she, Wayne, for Best Supporting Actress that year?
That is correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. And I believe Amy Adams was nominated too, I think, right?
They were dual nominated, yes.
And then was Wahlberg nominated for Best Actor that year?
He was not.
He was not. I didn't think so. And I thought that was,
He was up
that
for
was,
Best Picture.
yeah, that's what I thought, yeah. But David O.
But,
Russell, I mean, that was like, again, like I said, it kind of his return to filmmaking, and he hasn't really stopped since. He's got a new one coming out this year as well.
For me, it was when Amy Adams' character Charlene beats the shit out of all 7 of Mitch's sisters.
It's such a good scene. The disrespect that she goes through, and then the way she goes about kind of earning their respect, I thought was a really great scene. Melissa Leo as the mother is just crazy, and she's crazy good in that role. It's such a fantastic role for her.
She was Karen before Karens were recognized.
Huh?
She was Karen before Karens were recognized.
Exactly. Awesome yeah.
Obviously, you got Jack McGee, great character actor. You know, you might remember him from Rescue Me.
Yep.
And a million other things that I can't recall off the top of my head. So,
Chicago guy, I think, right? Chicago or New York? One of those two.
Born in the Bronx, New York.
The Bronx, okay. That makes sense.
Because he's Irish, he's got that South Side thing going on there, my friend.
Yeah. All right, so next up, we have Hurricane. And this is a movie that's really held together by a performance, and that's obviously the Oscar-nominated performance of Denzel Washington, who plays Reuben Hurricane Carter, a boxer who was falsely convicted of murder, and then the whole movie is about a group of Canadians played by Deborah Carey Unger and Liev Schreiber, who have to, or basically it's like an innocence project. They put their time into getting people like off of death row, and I think this movie is really, it's a fantastic film, and Denzel Washington is fantastic in it. If people haven't seen Hurricane because they heard it was not great or whatever, really take a chance and go watch it. Norm Jewison was the director. Just a really fantastic film. Wayne, what are your thoughts on the Hurricane?
It has been a long time since I've seen this film, 15 years plus, but I just remember the backstory and being so outraged by the false imprisonment that, you know, we are still seeing people's convictions to this day overturned who have been incarcerated for decades. So it's just, you know, when you think about, well, this isn't a movie, this shit happens in real life, and obviously this was a real life story too, correct? Or at least based on true events?
Yes. No, it's based on a true story. The song "The Hurricane" by Bob Dylan was written about Reuben Hurricane Carter.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, and then, the story. Here comes the story of a hurricane. The men the authorities came to blame. That's all about him, and it's great song, great movie.
Got another two of my favorite character actors. David Paymer. You'll recognize him from Porter, most likely. And it's like, Porter, your piece of the pie got a little bit smaller. I'll leave you a couple crumbs. And obviously, Vinny Pastore is in this. You know, Sopranos. Anytime I get a Sopranos reference, I'm going to call it out. So,
big pussy.
You know, hey, pussy.
That was the character, people. Relax.
Yeah.
Unclench
pussy. What's his name? Booty? Pussy. Anyway,
we did talk about.
Don't forget Clancy Brown. He's also in this as Lieutenant Jimmy Williams. So, I believe he plays.
Let me guess. The shitty cop that frames him, probably, right?
Nobody plays a villain better. Nobody plays it better than Clancy Brown.
No, he's really good at that, and he did the same thing in Shawshank.
Hell, he was just in Dexter New Blood and was fantastically vile.
Oh, was he? I still haven't watched that yet. All right, so a couple more that I'm going to mention. I'm going to just scroll through here. One, it's called now. Apparently they changed the name of it again, but it's called Chuck with Liev Schreiber. It's actually the true story of the character that Rocky is based on. Chuck kind of like, he was a big boxer back in the day, and
Chuck Wepner.
Yep, Chuck Wepner. And what he became famous for after Rocky was that he would go around and get fights because he's like, oh, Rocky was based on me. And that's it's a really good movie. Liev Schreiber, Elizabeth Moss, Naomi Watts, Ron Perlman. Really fun to watch Liev kind of play in this area. That's you could, I guess, find it under either Chuck or The Bleeder now, is what it's coming up as on Rotten Tomatoes. But really well made movie if you haven't seen it. Great cast.
There are so many boxing movies. Gosh, I'm just going through the list right now. Can I just list 3 of my favorites that we don't really need to go into any real? I've seen. Obviously, you've got Southpaw.
I love Southpaw. Yeah,
Jake Gyllenhaal. Grudge Match, which we've talked about before, and obviously we've got the Monster Jam tied to that. Goodness, Far and Away, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Not really about boxing, but that's
another one. That's a romance, kind of like Rocky. It's a romance film surrounded by boxing.
Real Steel, robot boxing, but hey,
we talked about that one. But yeah, that's a good one. Bleed for This is one I've mentioned before with Miles Teller. Very good, true story about a boxer who gets in a car accident and his career gets basically shut down. And he fights his way back from almost being paralyzed to return to the boxing ring, which is just crazy when you think about it. But that was his life. He wanted to be a boxer. He had reached that goal. And then he gets in this horrible car accident as his career was on the rise. And so everyone's like, oh, that's it. It's over. But he fought his way back. What's the box? Vinny Pazienza. So the Tasmanian Devil was his nickname.
Obviously, one of my favorites that we've talked about probably more than once, The Cinderella Man, 2005.
Yeah, that's high on this list on Rotten Tomatoes. That's very high.
One of the greatest boxing redemption stories ever. Again, another true story. So.
Another true story. Another one that's not really about boxing. I would argue that it has some parallels to the one that we're going to review today. Actually,
similar time. Yep. Timeline.
Jungle Land with Charlie Hunnam was pretty good. I watched that one recently. Ali, which we've talked about with Will Smith. You just mentioned Real Steel. I don't know what that one. Oh, I think I've heard of that one, but another Nazi Germany one. Resurrecting the Champ with Samuel L. Jackson and Josh Hartnett. Another one I want to talk about with Samuel L. Jackson, The Great White Hype. Kind of a comedy satire on boxing. Didn't get the love when it came out, but it essentially is like kind of like the Mike Tyson story when he fought that one white guy in the 90s and beat him in like 50 seconds. It's a story of Damian Wayne's character who needs a new opponent, and he gets a guy called the Great White Hope, which played by Peter Berg before he became the big famous director that he is today. And he's the only person that knocked out the champ, played by Damian Wayans, in the history. So they get him to do this big championship fight. It's got a great cast of Jeff Goldblum, Jamie Foxx. Like I said, Samuel L. Jackson. He plays the Don King character. Damian Wayans is the Mike Tyson character. Really fun comedy film. Has this great ending where, he, because it's this punch that Peter Berg's character lands when I think Damian Wayans' character was like 19. So he was just starting his career, and it was the only time he'd ever been knocked out. And in the ring at the end of the movie, he gets hit with that, and Damian Wayans is like, I ain't 17 anymore, bitch. And he beats the shit out of him. It takes like 1 round, maybe 2 rounds to end the fight. But really, really fun movie. If you haven't watched it, John Lovitz is in it too. Just a great supporting cast all the way around. One of my favorite boxing movies. But Southpaw. Go ahead.
I was just going to also bring up the one that we talked about a little over a year ago, or maybe almost a year ago, One Night in Miami. Very little boxing, but obviously it all circles around a boxing match.
Is a main character in that film, so that one centers around boxing. But I did want to touch on Southpaw because I really feel like that's an underrated boxing film. Yes, it does follow a lot of the same boxing tropes. But Jake Gyllenhaal is so good in that film. Originally written for Eminem, oddly enough, but he ended up just writing a song for the movie. It follows a boxer played by Jake Gyllenhaal, and his wife Rachel McAdams is shot and killed at the beginning of the movie, which sends his career into a downward spiral. He becomes a shell of himself. Kind of then ends up kind of working his way back with Forrest Whitaker, I believe, is his trainer right at that time when he's working his way back up. And he has to kind of trying to get back to what he once was and fight the guy who's kind of loosely responsible for, it wasn't him that pulled the trigger, but it was like one of his guys that pulled the trigger.
Was it 50 Cent? Or 50 Cent's in this movie, right? Let me check.
He is in the movie. He was his original trainer, I think.
Okay, yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, right. He was the one that kind of was supposed to be his friend, but really like let him fall by the wayside.
Right. Okay.
After everything that happened, he had the big mansion, he had everything. He was rich, he had everything going for him, and then it basically is. It's what's great too. This is another one. It's not about boxing. It's about trauma, PTSD, grief, and then also fatherhood. Because it's like he has to find a way to get back to his daughter, who I believe is being raised by the grandma, because he just fell apart when his wife, who was his lifeline, passed away. Obviously, very savagely murdered.
Written by Kurt Sutter, the creator of Sons of Anarchy.
So it's just one of those movies I think gets forgotten about because it wasn't great. It didn't reach the level of Rocky or Raging Bull, but it's a really good movie. And I think Gyllenhaal really makes it better than it probably was going to be in the first place. And it's really fun. It's a fun boxing movie to watch. And when I say fun, I don't mean like, I'm having a great time because it is very depressing, but it's a really entertaining film and I really like it. So if you haven't seen Southpaw, it's usually like on IMDb or somewhere. It's usually somewhere for free that you could stream.
You guys can watch Southpaw on Prime Video right now for $3.99.
There you go. So that brings us then to our reviews
of the week.
A little sing-songy there. I like it. So first up, we have our boxing movie. And it's another one that comes with another great performance, I think. It's called The Survivor. It's based on a true story. It stars the incredibly, incredibly underrated Ben Foster.
Yeah, this guy's right now calling it performance of a lifetime. Fantastic. Yes. And the fact that I didn't even freaking was close to realizing that was Ben Foster.
He looks.
I still contribute Ben Foster to being the little geeky tween in the Disney shows. So
yep. He is one of those actors. He's been doing some of his best work over the last 15, 20 years of his career, but he always gets cast as the side character. So he's very rarely the star of a movie, and The Survivor lets him be that. And it shows off his method acting abilities, as I believe he lost all that weight to portray this character in his early days. So The Survivor is a boxing film that's also a love story, that's also a World War II Holocaust story. And we meet our main character in 1963. He's walking on a beach, and then we go back to him becoming being a boxer in America post World War II. He's announced as the survivor of Auschwitz. That's his like name. I told my wife, I'm like, how could you go out every night and box and that be like your name, your moniker for everyone to know you by? Like that would be tough, I think, in itself. He then you basically find out that he's only boxing to get famous enough so the girl that he loved, that they were both separated during World War II, would see his name. That's why he used his actual name. He didn't want to change it or anything when he came over. It's now Harry Haft as opposed to whatever Harry is in German, which is like a lot more letters. But he essentially is only boxing to be noticed, so she'll see him and recognize, because he doesn't know what happened to her. Everyone's telling him to let it go. She's dead. Move on. The story keeps going back to the time where he was being trained by a Nazi to be a boxer, and he ends up kind of not being liked by everybody in the Jewish faith, mainly Polish area because he's Polish. Because in his story is that he would box and whoever lost was killed.
Yeah,
It's
they
not
called
this.
him a traitor and
Yep.
threw shit at him, and
Yep. They hated him because, obviously it was so fresh back then that he was looked at no different than the enemy, but the only other choice was to be murdered. It was
mm-hmm.
it was either, win or die, and he chose to survive. Hence the name of the movie, The Survivor. And Peter Sarsgaard, who plays the reporter in this, has a great line where it's not. He says it's not so black and white. That's why he wants to tell his story, because his story is different than just, oh, I survived Auschwitz. There's a lot, and I think everybody's is. He tells a story. There's a great uh, metaphor that Ben Foster's character tells Sarsgaard's character, that this guy, if you don't show up to roll call with your hat, you're gonna get killed. Well, so this guy loses his hat. He goes back and he tries to find any hat. Doesn't matter. He finds a guy's hat, puts it on, goes to the thing. Sees another guy come back looking for his hat. Knew it was there, can't find it. Well, guess what? 10 minutes later, he hears a gunshot go off. Is the guy that found the hat, is he a bad guy? Is he a bad person? You really can't say that. It's a difficult, at that time, you had to make those decisions. These people were left with those decisions to make. Who am I to judge? Who am I to tell them that they were wrong wanting to live? It's there, and there. I don't want to ruin the movie, because there's this point at the movie where you get another story like that, and
Mm-hmm.
where he actually made a different choice. But he ended up honoring somebody else's choice over his own choice, and he had to live with that. Just the and the movie does a great thing in the beginning, Wayne, which I thought was interesting. Instead of based on a true story, it says based on the memories of Harry Haft.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes you think about it differently. When you read that, it's like, well, okay, so this isn't just someone else telling the story. This is Harry's telling of the story from what he remembers happened to him. And when you read it like that, it's just like a holy fuck. Like it's a gut punch in the beginning of the movie. But yeah, as you can tell, is how I'm talking about the movie. I really like this film. It does a lot. I told Rebecca that she should watch, because she falls asleep, of course. We did watch it late at night though, so it's not surprising. But it really is. It's a love story. It's a story about survival, and it's kind of surrounded by boxing. I mean, he was really only a boxer for like a year, so like outside of the concentration camp. But Wayne, go ahead. I've been talking a lot. Why don't you go ahead and give us your thoughts on this film?
No, it's a fantastic film, perfectly interweaving between current events and the flashbacks, and obviously the black and white versus the in color. It's really, really nicely done. Flow is very good. Nothing is interrupting, and everything just fits very nicely into this. And I can't believe I'm talking so nicely about a film that depicts such horrific events in.
Yes.
It's hard to say, because like when you talk about obviously something similar, we talk about a Schindler's List, fantastic, beautiful, but horrific at the same time. So definitely falls into similar descriptions, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
But just this, varying levels of emotions. You feel a lot of different things watching this. So
yeah, it was for me, it was really the last like 40 minutes really where it hit me emotionally so much. I was telling my wife, I was kind of recounting the story that he tells in the movie to her, and I was getting emotional just retelling that story to her, not about this movie. Just really, the last 40 minutes just hits you. If you're a parent, if you're a husband or a wife or whatever, like there's a lot of stuff to grab onto the last 40 minutes of this movie, and the trauma that he is still going through 20 years, almost 20 years later, and him having, the idea that he has to tell his son and his other children what he went through. Like his wife is a great part where his wife is the woman who ends up helping him earlier in the movie. She tells him, she's like, he needs to know who you are. Like, because his thought process is he doesn't want anybody else to have to live with what he's gone through. But his wife makes a good point. She's like, why? I already have to live with it because you've told me everything. So you've unloaded it onto somebody already. And then that's where we hear this one story that he did not tell his wife, which is just incredibly depressing and sad, and a really kind of tonal moment in the film, I think. Ben Foster, I mean, right? I'll tell you right now that he is my choice to be nominated for Best Actor for this movie because it's that good of a performance. He's so talented, and it's one of those movies I think everybody should see, just based on his performance alone. The way he juggles between the character, the humor too that you have to find in these type of situations. There's a great underlying thing in this film where he talks about the jokes that they told while they were in the camps, and the woman who would then become his wife is like, well, how could you guys find humor in that? Like but you need comedy. We've talked about this several times. You have to have comedy to survive traumatic situations, and this is a good example of that. And then he finally ends up finishing the joke, which I actually thought was a pretty funny joke at the end of the movie, which it kind of is a nice button on this film. I really dug this film. I think everybody should watch it. I say a solid 8 out of 10, if not even higher than that. It definitely, I think on repeat viewings, it could climb higher. Really, really well done. Really well made film. The black and white and stuff for the older scenes, for the concentration camp scenes, I think work really well. Foster is just fantastic. The fact that he was able to, I don't think he gained as much weight as De Niro did, but I believe he lost the weight to play him in the concentration camp, and then obviously put some of it back on too. And then I'm sure they probably makeup wise added more to him to make him look a little heavier after he got out of the camp. But really just a powerful performance from him. Tour de force, as they say. And it's very subtle, because people are going to hear this and watch it and be like, oh, he's not chewing up scenery. He doesn't need to. It's a very subtle performance from him. And I think it's really something that people need to see. Wayne, what are your final thoughts on the film and your ranking?
I'm right there, like 8.5 at least. It's another one of these that I need to rewatch just to fully digest everything that's going on in it, just because there's so much just little nuances and whatnot. Just like I definitely want to revisit this again just to really fully encapsulate and enjoy it, and just understand just like you said, the memories of Harry Haft. It's just one of those things that makes you stop and go so very fantastic film.
Also, I should mention too, it's based on a book that was written by his son. So his son took those memories and turned it into a book, and then which led to this movie. And it's really, and I think too, a lot of it, a lot of times you watch a biopic or something based on history, they change a lot. I don't think they changed a lot, because it wasn't this huge movie that they were going to have to, we got to do this for these type of people, do this for this. They were able to tell this story almost, I think, 100% correct how it was. Also should mention it's directed by Barry Levinson. We didn't mention it at the top. His first movie in about 7-8 years, but very legendary director in his own right. So really great to have him make a movie again. And again, just watch it for Ben Foster's performance, because he is simply just incredible in this movie. Also should mention Danny DeVito and John Leguizamo have performances in this film, and they're both really good as trainers. He does end up having a fight against Rocky Marciano, which is kind of incredible, because you're like, oh, wow, it's going really well for him. But if you look up what happened in the fight, it didn't really end very well for him. At that time in his career, Marciano was just really injured a lot, so he was very quickly wanting to get out of boxing matches as fast as he could. So, which meant a lot of pummeling. But yeah, great film. It's on HBO Max right now, so you can go check it out. Called The Survivor. All right, so our next one is kind of what the kind of movie you need, I think, to get over such a depressing film like The Survivor. Even though The Survivor does end, I think, hopeful in its own right in the way that it can. So the next we turn to a Hulu original film called Crush, and Crush is about a lesbian, an out lesbian who has a crush on the hot girl in school, if you will, and it's kind of like a one of those love triangle type of things where she ends up, also working really closely with the hot girl's sister, and who is also who's bisexual, and then the main hot girl is queer, is a lesbian, and so it's this love triangle, if you will, between these three girls. It's a coming of age story. It's coming into your own. They're juniors in high school, we kind of are thrusted into that. There's a lot of sex talk and stuff in this movie. It's very open to talk about that kind of stuff, which we've talked about several movies on this podcast. Yep. These are the kind of movies that kind of Wayne and I live for, the coming of age stories.
Hulu is doing a fantastic job with these, because we had Sex App before that, very much in the same vein. I totally cut you off there. I apologize.
No worries.
I get a good thought in my head and I don't want to forget it. So let me just barrel over what you were saying. I apologize, but
no worries, man.
Long enough you expected from me, unfortunately. Another thing.
It definitely, you're right. I was going to mention that too. Hulu has made kind of gone in the right way with a lot of these coming of age stories, and this is just another one that I really enjoyed. It's a lot of fun. It's got a great young cast. It's also, we should mention too, mostly Latino cast, which is going to get on nice that as well.
The first Caucasian is listed as Angie Evans. I believe that's the mother, Megan Mullany.
Yeah, from Will and Grace. Yep.
Forgive me, I don't know how to pronounce the name.
Yes, Mullally, I think is how it's pronounced. She plays the mom, which is great, and it's funny too, because there's the best friend and his girlfriend, which is normally 20 years ago who this movie would be about, right? It would be about the best friend and the girlfriend being in love and stuff, but they're the secondary characters, which I think is a nice part that we've come to. There's a great line from Asif Manvi, and you don't, as a parent, you don't even think about it, but like they're at a track meet and they're staying in a hotel, and he's like, well, I know 60% of you are queer these days. He's like, but still, we can't have anybody getting pregnant, so no girls and boys sharing rooms. Like, so they're basically taking out like the, they understand that other people could still have sex in these hotel rooms, but at least no one should get pregnant. So it's like, it's just that type of mentality of like kind of moving us into the future of like, we know that, you know what, everyone's sleeping with everybody these days, so there's really not much we're going to be able to do to stop this. Just don't get pregnant.
The coach, Asif Manvi, I believe.
Manvi, yep.
Just one of my favorite another one of my favorite character actors. When every time he pops up, it's like, that guy.
Him and Mullally have such a good time together in this film. You could tell a lot of improvised lines, I think, between the two of them as well. Really well done. I loved his, like, for some reason, like when he was playing bad cop, he had his like this thick Louisiana accent, and then when he was coaching the team, he was his normal voice. I was like, oh my, where did this come from? But it was just a really interesting way for him to play that character. I think he plays the kind of hard-headed coach. They're trying to discover who's vandalizing the school with their murals, which I think is pretty obvious. It's not a huge mystery. I figured it out pretty quickly, but it was fun to watch the love story unfold between those two, between the two main characters of AJ and I had it up on my phone here. Paige, yes, AJ and Paige, and then there's Gabby, of course, who's the hot lesbian in the school. I really
enough, on IMDb. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you
Interesting enough, on IMDb, the main character isn't even listed in the main cast. You have to scroll down to rest of cast alphabetically listed, and then you get Rowan Blanchard. It's like, what?
That's weird, because she is the main. So don't be confused by IMDb, everybody. Rowan Blanchard is the main character in this film. Maybe she was cast last. Sometimes that's how these are put up here. But I'm gonna butcher this, but Lily Cravalho, who plays AJ Campos. She was really good. I feel like I've seen her before and stuff. Oh, she's Moana. So the girl that voices Moana is the main girl in this one, and she's also in All Together Now, which was a really good movie on Netflix. Another coming of age story. Um, but yeah, she was really good. Isabella Fiera as Gabriella. Tyler and Alvarez and Tila Dunn as Dylan and Stacy were funny because they were the just straight up horny straight couple that couldn't keep their hands off of each other, which I thought was very humorous and very funny.
Yeah, they kind of beat that dead horse though. It's
like, they did, of course,
they
did. Yeah, this movie, like, it, don't get me wrong. There are some, I did have some issues with it, but overall, it's very entertaining. I really enjoyed it. I would say a solid 7 out of 10. Go ahead, Wayne.
You know what bothered me? Co-ed track team, co-ed sports. Oh my gosh, we can't have that.
Seriously, did it?
I was being sarcastic. Obviously, it
yes.
doesn't usually exist, but
it was this movie is going to upset people that don't like. I hate using this word, but woke culture, because it is definitely, it's the main characters. The three main characters are a bisexual and 2 lesbians, and like you said, there's the joint track team. Everyone's very sex positive in this movie, which none of that is bad to me. So
I can hear the conservatives now. Well, I guess just everybody's gay, huh?
Well, at the end of it, because my wife has to deal with people at work, we're telling her that this is being forced on them. So at the end, when it was over, she's like, "Why are they forcing it on me?" Like, obviously jokingly, because it's not. It's just a movie about people, and queer people are people. And like we watched, we'll jump to the recommendation part early here. We watched a show called Heartstopper, and on Netflix, and very much in line with this movie. So if you're gonna watch this and watch Heartstopper on Netflix, is a 8-episode 30-minute TV series, and it's about love. And it's like, why can't people just love who they want to love? And that's what my wife talked about during that show. That's the same with this movie. Why can't anyone just love who they want to love? And it's none of your goddamn business who they love.
Absolutely. I was just going to say the same thing. Fuck off with your opinions. You can take them and shove them up your ass.
It's like, you can have them, but I don't need to hear them.
Opinions are like assholes. They all stink.
Yes. But yes, I would say definitely, as I said already, a solid 7 out of 10. Wayne, what would you say for this ranking for this movie?
Yeah, I'm right there. 7.5. I was going to go. So
yeah, very, very well done. Well, entertaining film. The cast is great.
Me, I'm out of touch because I am old and decrepit now as of this week. So I maybe it was a little bit over the top with, or a little maybe exaggerated is the word, but
yeah, I mean, I think
I laughed a lot, and I was like, hey, what's going on? So
it was, yeah, we've definitely watched a lot of ones that take it a bit more serious. This one is definitely in the kind of like can't hardly wait rom-com area of comedy, where it's all taken with it's kind of all over exaggerated a little bit, but I think that's to make it fun. And it's a really fun movie. And I hope people seek this one out, because it's, when you get a lot of these straight to Hulu movies, they don't get a lot of promotion. Same with the Netflix ones. So this is another one I think people should definitely go check out. It's on Hulu if you have Hulu. All right. So
speaking of checking things out, make sure you check out our Batman episode that dropped on Friday.
Yes. We had a lot of fun with that one. Isaiah Shepard, Wayne's friend, was on to talk everything Batman. I think that one came out really well. If you're into Batman, definitely go watch The Batman. If I'm going to talk about other movies too that we've reviewed recently, go watch The Batman. Go watch, was it Metal Lords? Right? That was the other one.
Yes, fantastic one is Metal Lords. Fantastic.
That was really, really good. All right, so into what we've watched recently. I'll let Wayne go in a second here, but I just want to say mine real quick. I started my second actor watch month here, so I did Sidney Poitier, as Wayne suggested. I watched Lilies of the Field, which was his lone Oscar win. Really good movie. It's a comedy. I do like the aspect of it where they just treat him like a person. Like it's interesting to see a movie from 1963 where like the color of his skin rarely comes up in topic. So I like that aspect of it, and it's not like they're ignoring it; they're just treating him like he's a person, and and that's okay. And I just thought that was a really interesting take on, again, like I said, on something from 1963. He became the first African American actor to win Best Actor, and he did it for that movie.
Oh, and the racists had a field day with that one, didn't they?
Oh, I'm sure. Yes. Let's see.
Again, it's just coming back to that mind your own fucking business and keep your opinions to yourself.
Exactly.
Wayne's hot today. Hot.
Yes. Let's see. Heartstopper, like I said, watch that. I caught all the way up on Mayans, Wayne. So I'm all caught up. I watched the first 3 episodes of season 4. Man, season 3 was depressing. It was like they were like, we're not going to talk about COVID, but we're going to make everybody depressed as fuck. And that was the border closed. They had no money. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yep. No, I would. Season 3 was tough just because they changed the theme song, and I'm pissed about it.
They did change it, but they give it more of the opening is more immigrant centric.
Yeah.
They show a lot of like old like Latino immigrants like coming into America and stuff like that. So I think that's definitely a change we saw, that Elgin James took control of the show from Kurt Sutter. Essentially, they were running it together for 2 years, and then, as everybody knows, Kurt Sutter was basically fired by FX. Elgin James took over, and that's where that beginning changed. I actually appreciate that it's much shorter now, because I was used to, if I missed the skip on Hulu, I had to fast forward the opening every time. So,
see, I like the song, so that's why I just kind of was like, all right, cool.
I gotcha. Still a good show though. If you are interested in watching Minds, or you thought about it, watch it for sure. Wayne, anything that you've watched that you want to talk about this week?
Oh, Ozarks is back, and wow, the first 2 episodes, dude. Obviously, the whole series is intense, but we're getting ready to wrap up, and wow, it's guns a-blazing, and the intensity is off the hook. Still making my way through The Walking Dead. I'm into season 8 now, and it's just the slog through the Negan stuff. So
Like
it's
forcing
kind of on
yourself
pause
to watch it.
Yeah, it's like I'm taking my penance, or
yes,
it's my punishment. Gosh, there's something else that I was excited to watch. We Own the City on HBO Max.
How was
it? Just debuted a week.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet, but it's definitely on the list. Obviously, The Punisher.
John
he was on
Bernthal.
Walking Dead as well. Thank you, John Bernthal's in it. One of the guys that I like, even though I couldn't remember his name there. So hopefully, based or created by the same people that made The Wire, and it takes place in Baltimore. So hopefully, it's maybe there's some ties in there, or at least you can kind of transfer from that into that. I haven't watched it yet, so I will report back.
Yes. As you mentioned, that one also, Under the Banner of Heaven, just hit Hulu. That's an FX miniseries starring Andrew Garfield and Sam Worthington. It's like a murder mystery. Looks really, really good. So I'm looking forward to starting that one, as well as the John Bernthal one on HBO Max, which is also a miniseries. Ozark, you mentioned, that's my next one. So I did Mayans. I'm going to go to Ozark because I haven't watched part 1 yet of the final season. So I'm going to go through that one. I'm looking forward to getting to that, because the first 3 seasons of Ozark are incredible, and I've heard these last 2 parts are really good. So definitely check those out, people, if you're interested. All right, so let me do news and notes here, and we'll wrap up the show. News and notes for this week. Epic's horror series From renewed for season 2. David Harbour to play Jimmy Galante in the Trashers film. El Muerto, Marvel Sony film in the works for a January 2024 release date. Singer Bad Bunny will star as the title character, also known as Juan Carlos. So he's the superpowered Mexican wrestler that fights Spider-Man, so that fits into the whole Sony universe, expanding to Spider-Man villains, all that kind of stuff. Sony officially bringing Venom and Ghostbusters back for sequels. They announced it at CinemaCon this week. Obviously, Ghostbusters Afterlife we talked about, we'll be excited for that. We'll see what happens. Universal pushes Super Mario Brothers film to April 7th, 2023. Puss in Boots 2 moves back September to December, taking Mario's old release date. David S. Sandberg directing Below at Netflix, with James Wan producing. Wicked film split into 2 parts. Part 1 will debut Christmas Day 2024. Part 2 a year later on Christmas. Justin Lin steps down from directing Fast X, so that was big news this week. We'll see who comes in to replace him. Melissa McBride has dropped out of the Walking Dead spinoff featuring her and Daryl. It'll now just solely focus on Daryl's character. Apparently, she was not keen on having to move to Europe for a while because that's where that was going to be. That's where that was being filmed.
Right.
The Nun 2 officially announced. Michael Chavez will direct after directing 2 previous installments in the Conjuring universe. He did The Curse of La Llorona and Conjuring 3. Avatar 2, officially titled Avatar The Way of Water, opens on December 16th. Bupkis, starring Pete Davidson, ordered straight to series at Peacock. That's the one that's kind of loosely based on his life. A Quiet Place, Day 1 will be the official title to Michael Sarnowski directed prequel. Sandler re-teaming with the Safdie brothers who did Uncut Gems. So they're going to work on a new film together. Anna Kendrick up for the role in Thriller, The Dating Game from Watcher director Chloe Okuno. Bruce Greenwood replaces Frank Langella in Mike Flanagan's Netflix show The Fall of the House of Usher. Ant-Man 3 takes the Marvels release date February 7th, 2023, and the Marvels moves to Ant-Man 3's date of July 28th, 2023. Apparently, Ant-Man was just further along in production. Russell Crowe and Liam Hemsworth to star in action thriller Land of Bad. Batwoman canceled at CW after 3 seasons. John Watts will no longer direct MCU Fantastic Four movie. Needs break after directing 3 Spider-Man films. James Corden ending hosting run in 2023. Legends of Tomorrow canceled after 7 seasons at CW. Ana de Armas starring in John Wick universe film Ballerina. Shooting starts this summer. Space Force canceled after 2 seasons at Netflix. Kung Fu Hustle 2 finally getting a sequel. That's a movie that a lot of people loved back when it came out years ago. They're finally doing another one. Blake Lively making directorial debut with Seconds, based on Brian Lee O'Malley's graphic novel. He's the creator of Scott Pilgrim. Awesome news here is Edgar Wright is actually going to write the screenplay for her. So I think that's pretty cool. Be Blake Lively's first directed film. Most of that 70s show cast, Wayne, is returning to the 90s show, minus obvious Danny Masterson, who's on trial for rape right now. So
let's be honest, Hyde's character is probably either in jail or dead at this point.
Yes, so I'm sure that's probably how they'll write him off. But it's really great that they are getting the rest of the cast. At least they're not going to be main characters, but to come back and have side roles.
Just to have them pop up occasionally, kind of like how they did on that 70s ranch.
Yeah. They were all pretty much on that show. Yeah. I think except for Prepon. I don't think and oddly enough,
Topher
Mila
Grace,
Kunis, who was his wife, which is weird.
Did Topher Grace pop up?
Oh no, yeah, you're right. Topher didn't pop up either. That's right.
I was like, wait a minute. I know I really enjoyed that, but okay. I thought I was having a stroke there for a second.
I forgot that he didn't. Yeah, he wasn't on it either. But it was a good show. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see them back. They already started filming. So I know Kurtwood Smith released a photo of him and Rupp sitting at the old table. So it'd be great to see that how that comes together. I'm really excited.
I am so excited to have Red Foreman back in my life. I have
something I think people didn't realize they needed, but they need it.
Hey, Red Foreman is the father we all kind of need every now and then.
So. Oh yeah, just to call us a dumbass. It's needed.
But still was portrayed and expanded enough to where he showed how much he loved all those kids. Not
just such a deep character. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, don't let me. Yeah, I'm not trying to say it was one note. He's definitely a lot more. There's a lot more to him than I think people realize.
Compared to other TV fathers like Mr. Brady, who was all happy and loving all the time, and or Homer Simpson that's just a complete idiot all the time. It's like I appreciated Red for just who he was.
Yes, for sure. Agreed. All right, so releases coming up. Fire Island with SNL cast member Bowen Yang hits Hulu June 3rd. The Russo brothers' next film, The Gray Man, with Chris Evans, Ryan Gosling, Ana de Armas, and Regé-Jean Page, hits Netflix July 22nd. Dashcam, movie from host-director Rob Savage, hits theaters and on demand June 3rd. Shazam 2 moved to December 21st. That doesn't have to compete with Avatar 2. Claire Danes and Tom Hiddleston aquatic horror series The Essex Serpent debuts on Apple Plus May 13th. Olivia Wilde's Don't Worry Darling hits theater September 23rd. Greta Gerwig's Barbie, starring Margot Robbie, as The Beloved Doll hits theaters July 21st, 2023. Avatar Remastered hits theaters September 23rd, 3 months before the long-awaited sequel. Kevin Hart and Mark Wahlberg's Me Time hits Netflix August 26th. Deaths this week: Harold Livingston, writer of Star Trek The Motion Picture, dead at 97. Josaro Gennaro, ER and the Young and the Restless, dead from cancer at 48. And the biggest one from the week, just passed away yesterday, Naomi Judd, lead singer, mother to Ashley Judd and Winona Judd, dead at 76. Apparently mental illness was the cause. I'm not sure exactly what the cause of death was, but 76 years old, still, a little too young to have passed on. So rest in peace to all of them. But yeah, that's our show for this week, everybody. We appreciate you guys listening. We got our 100th episode coming up in a couple months. We're excited about that. We think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have multiple guests for the first time.
Yeah, you're going to hear some old voices.
Yep, exactly. Some voices that you loved, hopefully, because they will be back. But yeah, it'll be definitely something to look forward to. So keep that on your calendar. It'll be sometime in June that we'll be releasing that. Yeah, we hope you guys.
I gotta say, I am so excited for that episode. It is going to be fantastic, and it's going to be a marathon because the wheels are going to fall off more than once.
Oh my God, they're already falling off, I think, in preparation. No, it'll be a lot of fun, and we're going to talk a lot of movies with a lot of our friends. So we obviously appreciate all them joining us, and we'll have more as it gets closer, but definitely pencil that one on your calendar. So if you do listen to us on a somewhat regular basis. All right, well, that's our show for this week. Thank you for listening to Now Showing with Mike and Wayne.
Ronald Reagan, the actor?
Hasta la vista, baby.
Hey, everybody, we're all gonna get laid.